Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim, and I'm at Hobart Elementary School in Los Angeles. Really beautiful campus as I'm coming and seeing these amazing murals.
Hobart Elementary School is one of the very famous and historical elementary schools in Koreatown in the Los Angeles area. A lot of first generation Korean immigrants, they sent their kids to school here in Hobart Elementary.
And I'm actually reminded of my wife who came to the United States in elementary school, first grade.
As far as I know, this school was the only one who had a Korean teachers. Not many, of course. So a lot of people in Korean community, they have a good memory about this school.
I know you know a lot about my background, but she's also an amazing educator, has her doctorate in education, has a story of resilience.
And one of the very famous young artists just draw this beautiful calligraphy, and those are murals too, to make this school more brighter and more famous.
Wow, just stepping onto this campus kind of makes me feel and think about her story, her journey as well. And so I had a chance to talk a little bit about our Korean American Studies course to parents, and to kind of remind them that the Korean American story begins with them, that they have a story of resilience. So that's why when I encourage my students to know their story, that includes knowing their parents' story or knowing their parents' parents' story, because oftentimes it's a great story of resilience. When you look at the first wave of Korean American immigration over 120 years ago, we know that there's a great story of resilience that emerges of Asian American communities like Pachapa Camp and Dosanan Chanho. That's a relatively small number, a little less than 8,000 Korean Americans in that particular first wave, because soon thereafter there would be the exclusion of Asian Americans to the United States. But in Korea, there's also another story of resilience that's emerging as well, that many Korean Americans, because their parents came from Korea, also can resonate with. And that includes maybe their grandparents between 1910 to 1945 living under colonization, when Korea was colonized by another nation, and so much was happening during that time. The stories of resilience that emerge then. So, a story that can be painful, but also one, as I've heard another scholar share, can bring pride as well. So with the pain also comes the pride. Then the second wave of Korean American migration is more from 1945 to 1965, which included a lot of Korean war brides, orphans, mixed races, and so forth, which also tells a different kind of story of resilience for Korean Americans in the United States, and then also for Koreans in Korea as well. During that time, 1950 to 1953, was the Korean War, very huge civil war that occurred that affected the country greatly, a nation that had been one for so long and then is now divided after that time. But many lives lost, and it's a different kind of story of resilience during that time. And then we talked about the third wave, which is post 1965, and that's when the immigration laws changed, the Immigration Act of 1965. So my parents are among the first in that particular group, which is how I'm also a second generation Korean American born in the United States. And in Korea as well, it's a story of resilience, because in Korea there was massive, some people call it the miracle on the Han, economic development, also growth in democracy. So today it's a nation that can be very proud, with the 10th largest GDP and considered to be one of the most democratic nations in the world today. And that's interesting because post 1953, right after the Korean War, is perhaps one of the poorest nations in the world. So the fact that in the last a little over 70 years, they've been able to just transform their own country, that is a story of resilience as well. So connecting these stories together so that it benefits the student, I think, is important, because oftentimes there's not an opportunity to make these connections. But I think creating these connections helps to strengthen one's own story of resilience. So I encourage them. And then we talked about our course and how there's so many spaces for that to happen, with the My Story introductions, or the podcast that we've done, or the Shijo poems, or the other stories of resilience that we've learned about, the children's book, or the resilience events that we put on. There's just so many that we have done that I hope has strengthened the resilience of Korean Americans, but not just Korean Americans, all Americans as well, as we learn about these tremendous stories of resilience, both in Korea as well as for Korean Americans in the United States. So it's a real honor that out of Anaheim Union High School District we have our Korean American Studies course, which is helping students to know, tell, listen, and do something good with their stories, which I think is going to be a benefit to them, their community, and country. So yes, I do think a course like this empowers leaders for today and also global leaders as well, because oftentimes we've got to interact with many different people, many different spaces. So as you know your own story, knowing how to connect to many other people in a good way allows us to become global leaders.